Monrovia, Liberia, March 21st, 2025. The Solidarity and Trust for a New Day, Liberia's grassroots civil society and advocacy movement, extends heartfelt appreciation to all members of the motorcyclists and Keke unions for entrusting the organization with the responsibility of representing their legal interests in the face of the business and unjust actions taken by the Liberian National Police of recent times. No doubt, the Liberian National Police illegally restricted movements of all motorcyclists, which are still being carried out under the canopy of no-go zones, and continues to infringe upon citizens' fundamental right to freedom of movement. STEM commends the remarkable restraint of bike and Keke riders who, despite persistent provocation by the Liberian National Police throughout the legal process, remain peaceful and law-abiding. Whilst they acknowledges the ruling of the Justice in Chambers, which was of course released today, which businessly denied the request of STEM for a writ of prohibition against the LNP's unlawful and discriminatory actions against motorcyclists and Keke riders, STEM remained steadfast in its fight for justice for all motorbike and Keke riders. Hence, STEM and the people will not be deterred by the biased ruling of the Supreme Court, which was today released under the signature of the Justice in Chambers. We believe this ruling is a shameless execution of the dictates of the executive branch of government led by President Joseph Walker. STEM finds it both appalling and cruel that Justice Clinton Johnson would stoop so low as to betray the trust and confidence of not only bike and Keke riders, but also thousands, possibly millions of students, civil servants, marketeers, police officers, and even military personnel who depend on these means of transportation for their daily activities in and beyond Central Monrovia. The continuous pattern of injustice, now compounded by this latest decision from the Justice in Chambers, has stained the Supreme Court's reputation, transforming it into a temple of injustice against the people of Liberia. Furthermore, STEM bemoans the Supreme Court's continuous moral and legal decay, as it wasted no time in freeing by the inglorious court a convicted murderer who brutally took the life of an innocent girl with impunity, while blatantly denying justice to the hundreds of thousands of tax-paying bikes and Keke riders. With this biased and politically driven ruling, clearly influenced and dictated by President Joseph Walker, the Supreme Court of Liberia has effectively weaponized the Liberian National Police, enabling it to continue its campaign of violence and brutality against ordinary citizens of our country. Justice Clinton Johnson's decision offered disturbing confirmation of Police Deputy Director for Operations Nelson Fremont's prior boast and arrogance, which was made openly on the Supreme Court's premises even before the ruling, where he declared that you will hit and kill motorbike riders who would then enter their so-called no-go zone restrictions. Now that the Supreme Court, as the final arbiter of justice, has issued a ruling that infringes on fundamental rights and unjustly restricts the free movement of Liberian citizens, it is crucial to emphasize that the court remains subservient or subject to the Constitution of Liberia, which is the supreme law of the Republic, to which all, including the judiciary, are bound to respect and remain submissive to. Therefore, the Constitution explicitly affirms that the ultimate source of power resides in the people, not in any government or individual. It guarantees the people's right to freedom of movement and assembly, as outlined in Article 17, which upholds the right to freely assemble and consult peacefully on matters of common good, to instruct representatives and to petition the government for redress of grievances. In response to this blatant injustice and the ongoing pattern of biases in Supreme Court rulings and judicial corruption that have denied justice to the poor, STAN will, in the coming days, hold a major press conference with a cross-section of aggrieved Liberians to announce the date and time for mass protest actions aimed at shaking the nation's corrupt and decadent foundation in demanding justice, the rule of law, and good governance in Liberia.
I'll report for OKF, and from the last thing, you say protest. So we say as a civil society heads, and you submitted your bill to the Supreme Court, and now they rule against you, and you talk about protest. So many people wonder whether it does protest being necessary, whether the Supreme Court already deny you the bill.
Well, we just established by the details of the Constitution of Liberia that the Supreme Court may be the final arbiter of justice in all matters of rule of law, in matters of interpreting constitutional law. Regardless, the Supreme Court does not exercise final jurisdiction on grievances that are largely political and that are based on its failure to address the rights and the privileges of Liberian citizens who may feel aggrieved by rulings that are biased and politicized. We believe that the ruling that has been released by the Justice in Chambers of the Supreme Court, Madam Senior D. Clinton Johnson, is not only biased, it's not only business, does not only violate the fundamental rights of all Liberian citizens, motorcyclists and tricyclists, but is also influenced by the executive branch of government. Justice Johnson is an appointee of President Boakai. By the history, I think, and this is speculative, that he was doing a favor for his friend, one Honorable Johnson, who recommended his wife to be appointed on the Supreme Court bench as a justice. That was how Madam Clinton Johnson became a justice at the Supreme Court. So, regardless of this history, this relationship, or the proximity that she holds to the president, her appointment places a moral, ethical, and legal responsibility to execute justice in the interest or in favor of the rule of law, in favor of the due process of law. The work of judges is not to take sides in judicial matters or issues of grievances. The work of judges, be it Supreme Court or otherwise, is to interpret the law, regardless of which side interpretation may favor. Nevertheless, it is unfortunate that the activities, and this is rooted in my experience at the hearing, at the initial hearing that was conducted by Justice Clinton. My experience and the experience of all the other aggrieved parties that were present established a pattern of prejudices that was instituted by Madam Johnson. In fact, during the hearing, the quote-unquote hearing that was called, which in my view sort of legitimized the no-go zone or the police restriction rather than declare fair judgment, the Justice in Chambers was more like the prosecutor. In fact, she defended the action more than government lawyers that have been summoned to defend why the prohibition should not allow. So when a justice in Chimbo goes the extra mile, assume the position of a prosecutor on behalf of government, we are left with no other option but to believe that the executive branch is influencing the details of that process. So based on this proximity with the president and based on what she demonstrably executed at the hearing, it is clear that President Boake influenced the outcome of the Supreme Court, that Supreme Court hearing, and that the opinion that was released today that trashes the legitimate rights and concerns of motorbike riders and Keke riders has empowered the police or has weaponized the police to continue to mastermind mayhem, to inflict mayhem, to inflict harm, to brutalize innocent Liberian citizens that are simply exercising their right to free movement. Because it is, in my view, still unconstitutional for the Liberian National Police to decide where you can go and where you cannot go. Movement of people is a fundamental right and should not be stopped. But unfortunately, the ruling of Madam Clinton Johnson has expressed hatred, or is an expression of hatred against a select groupings of the Liberian population that may not want to be seen in the premises of the Republic. So yes, the protest action is made necessary by the fact that the only corridors where these bike riders who are Liberian citizens and are paying taxes could have gone to for justice has been denied. That door has been closed. Not closed because they broke the law, closed because the executive branch of government does not want to see motorbike riders operating within the confines of Monrovia, even though they pay their taxes, they insure their bikes, they are in strict compliance with the law, but nevertheless, that couldn't stop the justice in chambers for interpreting the law on their behalf. So that protest action will seek to rally all aggrieved Liberians, not just motorbike riders, aggrieved civil servants, aggrieved members of the police force that were downsized unjustifiably, aggrieved marketeers, aggrieved healthcare workers, people that agree by the economic hardship that is confronting Liberia will also be rallied. So we have announced today, as I'm reiterating, that in the coming days or weeks, we will put out a set date and time where this mass-based protest about good governance, about the rule of law, is going to be staged peacefully to consult for the common good and ensure that the corrupt decadence of our country is shaken and uprooted.
Mr. Chairman, it's something we want to ask this case where you are pushing at the Supreme Court. Some may say this may be your first major advocacy case, and which of course you have already lost it to the Supreme Court. I mean, how confident, how strong you are, your institution are to be advocating for Liberia?
Well, this is not my major. If you want to be honest, if you were of age enough to remember the history of Liberia's post-conflict advocacy process, you wouldn't have difficulty remembering Mobile Molu from 2005 all the way forward. When people say I went to prison 14 times, I was harassed by police, I was detained by government, it's not flattery. These things happen as an outcome of our relentless advocacy for the people. So this is not my first major advocacy. I've been advocating for almost 20 years, and I'm not tired of doing that yet. And besides that, I'm coming. And besides that, we are the progenitors of the successful World Crimes Court advocacy that was legislated by Parliament, that has been signed into law, that has been established, and with offices to be opened soon. I am the key advocate for that process from 2006, when a segment of the country thought it was not a viable transitional justice mechanism, even though later on it was embraced by even the detractors. So we continue to do these things. Now, for those of you that may be offended by the rational and objective stance I would take because we choose to be political. We've been around for a little over 1 year, and we didn't just come into advocacy being aggressive, being proactive in terms of declaring mass actions. This government was given 1 year breathing space to put this house in order. We've released in the last 1 year or so more than 30 press releases. We're taking government actions, we're taking government policy decisions, and calling for reform. And all these different calls and press releases have all fallen on deaf ears. At this point in time, the country is pivoting downward spiral. The recklessness of governance, the impunity of policymakers, the rise of corruption, the abuse of the rights of individuals and innocent Liberian citizens, the abuse of impunity, etc., have become so rampant that stand as a pro-democracy, grassroots civil rights advocacy movement can no longer just issue statements and go to bed. It's time for prudent, rational action. We did not lose a case on behalf of motorcyclists because we didn't have a good case. The case was misinterpreted and trashed by a Buaket-appointed judge of the Supreme Court, whose loyalty is not to the Supreme Court or to the people, whose loyalty is to the President's office. She is a key mastermind of the dictates of the President's decision. She is an implementer of what Buaket wants at the Supreme Court. So it's not that there was a rational judgment made by this lady that sort of led to the losing of a case that was submitted on behalf of bike riders. But rather, this woman decided that bike riders will not enter Monrovia. I have fight to prove that. During the hearing, she gave a narrative of her experience in Nigeria. Now, she's supposed to be the justice in chamber. She's supposed to be neutral, giving a fair interpretation of the law. She now says, but the whole thing say you're talking about here, I was in Nigeria. This is Clinton Johnson speaking, and it's on the record. I was in Nigeria, she says. I went to Nigeria, and she explained a long story and said, no motorbike was seen in the streets. She said during the time she stayed, government had regulated the movement of motorbikes that forbade the movement of these bikes in public areas. She said from our hotel down to the streets where we went for whatever she went for, we didn't see any motorbike flying in the street. So her argument was against bike riders' petition to lift restriction on the free movement of business people, entrepreneurs. These bike riders are not criminals, in as much as in every group you have criminals, you have bad apples. It doesn't make the more than 200,000 bike riders to be criminals. So if that's the argument they're using, then let's dissolve the police, because the police have proven to have people that are armed robbers. The police have criminals. The police have violent individuals like Nelson Freeman. Nelson Freeman's violence against innocent people is well documented. He shouldn't be in the police. Some of the people got MBFR backgrounds that fought war that killed people. I'm not talking about him in that respect, but there are police people that are liable for alleged brutalities against innocent civilians. So how can you be having someone like Nelson Freeman in the police who is boasting of violating the rights of innocent Liberians, who threatens to hit and kill bike riders who dare to enter a no-go zone area? Assuming that people even break the law, that people even violate no-go zone, it does not constitute a basis to be killed or to be brutalized. It does not. Okay, there's a process laid down which should be considered lawful to treat people, and if that process does not consider endangering the life of innocent people or killing people, hitting them with car and police car and battle, it's just not right. So because we have the likes of Nelson Freeman in the police, who is a clear violent character, so should we dissolve the whole police? How's about government? Mr. Buaket's government has demonstrated the presence of an endless list of corrupt officials. They're dismissing everything for corruption, but they can't prosecute them. So it's like being rewarded for their campaign commitments during his presidential bid. So should we dissolve the entire government, the entire cabinet, because individuals in Buaket's cabinet are corrupt? That's not how governance is run. So just because Keke riders have elements that are unscrupulous does not provide the basis to victimize 200,000 motorbike riders because 2 or 10 persons or 100 persons attack police. It does not provide any logical basis for the action. We have always argued that bike riders that violate the law should be arrested and prosecuted. We don't condone or support violence. So those that break the law should be arrested and prosecuted consistent with the due process of the law. But you cannot leave the violators or perpetrators of violence and you penalize 200,000 people or more and say you cannot count them on Rovio because on the day that they continue trucking, one of your friends, you attack police officers. Those who masterminded or perpetrated that attack should have been arrested and prosecuted consistent with the rule of law. But police has placed checkpoints everywhere only because of bike riders. This is wrong. Ask about truck drivers who are driving road unwanted vehicles that is a source of major accidents killing Liberians from time to time. One of the evidences is what happened at on Crown Hill. That truck wasn't roadworthy, but the police sat down there and allowed the truck to pass their checkpoint. But they were arrested at the same checkpoint a bike rider who declared violence. This is an injustice and should not be allowed to stand. And the fact that Justice Johnson has ruled to the contrary in an unjust manner against bike riders' legitimate concerns and petition about the rule of law, which is fundamental. The right to move freely is inalienable, is fundamental. It's a God-given right. It's not right that Walker created, it's not right that the police created, it is inalienable, it is God-given. You can prevent that. So to prevent that, you cannot use the Supreme Court to scare all that they have found arbiter, then we sit down. The Supreme Court ruled to the contrary. The people were coming in the streets. They were doing peacefully, but the way he says that their rights be protected because all power is inherent in the people. And the Supreme Court does not have any kind of right to contravene the essence of that constitutional premise. The Supreme Court itself is not the final arbiter of governance. By Article 1, it is very clear that all power is inherent in the people. They found the supreme law of Liberia, not the Supreme Court. The supreme law of Liberia is the Constitution of the Republic. And even the Supreme Court is subservient to that law. Even Mr. Bwaga is subservient to that law. I am subservient to that law. Backgrounders are subservient to that law, or they are subject to that law. They're not above it. The Supreme Court is not above the Constitution. So where they have used their unjust authority to infringe, to further infringe and encroach on the rights of motorbike riders, the Constitution of Liberia promises that we have the right as the people to freely assemble, to consult for the common good. So the people will be coming outside peacefully. And that peaceful process will be determined to consult for the common good and to shape the foundations of bad governance and to fight for the restoration of the rule of law. See our legislature. It is still in shambles. It is still being run by elements who have hijacked the rule of law, abusing the fundamental baseline of our Constitution. And you expect us to sit down and allow that to continue protractedly unabated? Of course not. There has to be a point where the people will rise and demand that the country the country returns to constitutional democracy. And that's what we will be doing when that protest date is announced very soon.
Nathaniel Dibo, Oracle. My concern is we'll stand ready to bring government for permit for your protest.
We will not run for any permits because there is no constitutional clause or requirement for seeking a permit from government before a protest is staged. Now, I've had this debate over and over when President Sani was in power. And we've challenged that. Anything that is not called law will not be imposed on the people. I am not going to read one line of anything to a justice ministry that breathes the fire and brimstone that is detected by the president and asking the permit to go do protest. It is not required. And they can't stop it because you know what? They're too small to be above the Liberian Constitution. No law requires me to write government of Liberia to seek authorization to protest. No. You can ask others to do that, but you don't ask mobile model to do that. I will not do that because I know my rights. We will turn out in our numbers, we will turn out in our tens of thousands, and we do not need Gabriel Cuomo's approval or the Justice Minister's approval or even Mr. Bucket's approval before we can stage a mass action. The people will come outside, it will be peaceful, it will be not violent. They don't need a permit. What?
You don't think it will be chaotic?
The one thing I can promise you is that the tens of thousands of Liberians that will be coming outside on the day to be announced soon will be doing so peacefully. My interest into public service has never been marred or marked by chaos. My interest in the public service has been governed by responsibleness, by proper, decent behavior befitting a decent citizen of our republic. I'm not a violent person, nor will people that we will mobilize to come out be violent. And we're not going to mobilize in secret. You see what's in the communities. So we will be peaceful. Even at the detriment of our lives, we will be peaceful. There's nothing that justifies violence and nothing will provoke us to be violent. So as to whether it will be violent is not my question. That's the question of the government, because they know how to kill innocent people. You have the police director whose arms are stronger in brutalizing innocent Liberians. You have a police deputy director called Nelson Fremont that has threatened to hit and kill motorbike riders for doing nothing but to just exercise their fundamental rights. So you should be asking them. You should be asking Mr. Barker, who sits in rehab and sees his country that he has elected to govern, disintegrating governance in lawlessness. So you should be asking him that. So be asking Mr. Barker, who is an architect of lawlessness, by virtue of the decision that you have made that is crippling our democracy. So the responsibility to determine violence or lawlessness lies with the state, not with me. I don't bear arms. I'm not violent. If it will be violence, they will be killing people or beating people. But guess what? Just because I could be killed, there's no basis for my fear. I'm fearless. You that once. If I would die on the day we'll have that protest in Liberia, it means that they have been determined or has been fated by God. But I don't run from police threats. I don't run from state-sponsored tyranny. I don't run from the brutality meted out by police baton or by M16 machine guns. I do not. You were yet in on Madam Shirley when we were protesting from time to time about good governance and democracy. And the police will make an announcement. I will tell them I'm not here hiding. I will tell them where I sleep. I will send text to the police director. I say I'm sleeping here tonight. You don't have to go look for me. I'm here. You want to arrest me? I'm in the open. You don't have to spend taxpayers' money to go look for mobile. I'm in the street. I don't have security. Because my security is in the people. I'm always confident with my security being resident with the people, because you know what? The day you start getting afraid of the people, it means you started doing wrong things. I'm always in the service of the people. So I don't need bodyguards when I go among the people. So if I will fall as an activist, it will come from government people. I don't fear that as a child of God, because you know what? Nobody can kill me here unless God authorizes it. So I fear God. I don't fear nobody. I don't fear Supreme Court justices like Peter Jordan Morris, who is working at the behest of Joseph Bucket. I don't fear Mr. Bucket. I don't fear Gabriel Cuomo. I don't fear violent Nelson Fremont. I fear God. They know where I live. I'm at my house every day. You want to look for me, you find me there. So I'm fearless. On that day, we'll come outside. And we will be in our tens of thousands. And the corrupt foundations of our country will be shaking on that day.
But lastly, just before we close, I hope you recall the 1979 West riot, where the Moja and Park did not ask for permit, and we all know the aftermath. Also, we know the rivalry, the bitter rivalry between the bad riders and the police. How do you intend to make it there?
What bitter rivalry? There's no rivalry. What we have is there is bitter hatred from government people against bike riders. Because to them, motorbike riders are not human beings. They should not be in Monrovia. Who are you? Who are you to determine who should be and who should not be in Monrovia? So there's no rivalry from bike riders to police officers. It is the police officers that are always intimidating, provoking, and victimizing bike riders. See what happened the other day, a few days ago, right here, around the Saturn area. This boy is almost home. In the police own statement, it is said that the victim lives on Paco Island. For those who don't know, Paco Island is just not far from where he was hit. So which means he was in the vicinity of his neighborhood. But the police still pursue him and hit him with a baton in front of eyewitnesses. And in that damage control mechanism, they took to the airwave, of course using taxpayers' money. It started dangerous propaganda. That in fact he was in hit, or in fact he saw the police and panicked and was running. Assuming that is even true, why would civilians be running from the police in a democratic, peaceful, stable country? Why would civilians be running from you? People should be running from the police when they are left, when their safety is threatened. But instead, they are running from the police. So where are we headed? And Mr. Bucket sits in rehab, they're sleeping, and is not concerned about these things. The country is disintegrating in chaos and anarchy. They beat the boy, they victimize him. And then because they were under public pressure, they went to the hospital and forced him from the hospital bed just to do photo op, to do a video recording, to legitimize their argument in the public that he was alive. Who does that? You almost killed this guy for doing nothing wrong. He's in a hospital. And then because you have a political agenda to justify the narrative, you dress him horribly and force him up into, before the camera to shoot a short video in justification of the action. This is wrong. The police have become enemy of the state. The police have become enemy of the state. If care is not taken, the image of the police is being destroyed beyond repair because citizens no longer have confidence in the police force because of the violence being meted out against innocent civilians. So they've lost integrity because of the likes of Nelson Fremont. How can you have a Nelson Fremont that is well documented for brutalizing innocent citizens? You're talking about he has 17 years impeccable record of policing. We know your history. I'm not going to go to the details for now, but we know your history. You are a man of violence. How come a lawyer becomes so violent to the extent where even his surroundings know he's not supposed to carry a firearm? He has a legitimate right to carry a firearm, but because he's trigger happy, he put a fire gun, they've restrained him from carrying firearms in public. Nelson Fremont, you can go deny that. It's a fight. So this man's a madman, shooting people, running behind motorbike riders, hitting them. Why would you be doing this? These are your brothers and sisters. You can't create jobs. You can't send them to school. No system of governance here that will care for these people. They say, okay, we want to be criminals, we'll be motorbike riders. Then you begin to restrict them. But before that, you take their money, register their bags, buy reflective jackets, wearing a helmet, got their licenses. It means they're contributing to the tax coffers that pay Mr. Cuomo, that pay Nelson Fremont, that even put fuel in Walker's jet when he's traveling to go on his how you call it, Epicurean bonanza. And then you say that you can take their money, but you can't allow them to go to Monrovia. You know what you've done? That decision will have an adverse effect on economic productivity. It will have an adverse effect on our human resource progress. How do you expect students to go to school? There's no sustainable means of transportation in our country. Students rely on Keke, motorbike to go to school, UL campus, Stella Maris, UMU, AMEU. You see them on bikes. After school, they wait for bus to carry them home. But the police director who is being emboldened by Mr. Boakai, has regulated that bikes don't enter this area. They call it, these areas no-go zone. So how do you expect these students to go to school and leave campuses and go back home every day? So you strengthen the movement of millions of people. That is not fair. Then you have a Boakai appointed Associate Justice called Senator Johnson, who are recommended by her husband to work at the Supreme Court, is carrying out the babies of Mr. Boakai, infringing on the rights of innocent civilians. This is wrong. So by her action, the Supreme Court has emboldened and weaponized the police to brutalize innocent citizens and to be agents of the tyrannical behavior against innocent citizens. And STAN will not stand for that. And STAN will rise peacefully in defense of the people. And STAN will never be shy or backrider because they are underprivileged and downtrodden. We will stand with them. We rally the Liberian people on the set day to be announced to ensure that the foundations of our country will be shaken so that its corrupt practices, its decadent behavior as a state can be uprooted to improve governance in our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.